Hello everyone, and welcome to my first watercolor speed paint. Now, if you've browsed my channel before, then you'll know this isn't really my first speed paint, but I've only ever recorded alters. But this isn't really too much different, since what I'm bringing you here is still Magic the Gathering related. In honor of the new Ixalan announcements and spoilers, I took my inspiration and channeled it into this watercolor piece of our exciting new pirate Vraska. Which, I have to say, the new art that came with the announcement is my favorite thing. Nothing really excites me more than pirates and dinosaurs, so smashing them together in a Magic the Gathering related piece of artwork just makes it way cooler. Anyway, this piece really started as a spur-of-the-moment sketch in my sketchbook, which I then transferred onto a nicer sheet of watercolor paper. I just used some tracing paper and graphite paper, which, is basically just carbon paper. And I pressed a little bit too hard when I did that, unfortunately, so a lot of my lines didn't end up erasing well or at all when I started inking. Something that really threw me off while I was drawing this piece was, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Vraska doesn't have ears. Every piece of art she's featured in, no ears. I don't know if that's like the norm for Gorgons, I'll have to check that later, but as an artist, it's a really weird thing to put down on paper. I made sure to tape down the paper to a solid flat surface before doing anything. I like doing this for a few reasons. For one, it keeps my borders straight and clean as I draw and paint over the tape, and it also serves to keep the paper from bending and warping as I begin to apply watercolors. Obviously with watercolors you need to use paper that'll stand up to all the water you're using, but even good papers can warp if you leave the edges free to just stick up wherever they want. The paper I'm using here is Strathmore 400 series cold press watercolor paper, and I'm doing my initial inking with my favorite Sakura Pigma Micron pen. Once I finished my initial inking, I went back over the lines with a thin watercolor brush, and I'm using Higgins Black Magic ink. It's a waterproof ink and it goes on really nice and smooth. I don't usually line with a brush, but I found out that I enjoyed the result a lot more with a brush than with a pen, and it also took way less time to do. I have to say, this is my first time using watercolors for an actual illustration in ages. I did do one project towards the end of my freshman year in college, so about a year and a half ago, but it didn't really involve too much shading or anything, just large swatches of color across the page. I always liked using watercolor washes as light ways to add colors to black and white rendered drawings, so this was really shaking things up a bit for myself. Here I took a minute to test out different colors I might want to use, just setting down a few swatches of colors in my sketchbook over the original sketch. I like doing things like that, it's just a little thing that makes me feel like I have a fancy artsy kind of sketchbook, and it helps me get a handle on the colors I'm going to be using in the actual piece. As you can see, I dove right into a gradient for the background, starting with a light green and a burnt sienna, but I eventually got to darkening the entire backdrop. When I got down to adding the black to the lower half, I sprinkled some coarse ground salt over the wet watercolor. This leaves you with a really neat texture once it all dries and you brush off the salt. While I waited for the background to dry, I went right on in, laying down colors on Vraska's clothing and a bit on her skin. And I apologize because right around here is where the high contrast of the piece caused the light to wash out a lot of the lines and colors in the video recording. But anyway, you can see around this point that the background has dried and was left with this wispy and uneven coloration and texture because of the salt pulling the pigment around. What came next was the color on Vraska's tentacles. I'd never really noticed the dappled coloration she had going on with her orange spots, but I adore the look. I slowly added more layers to the different parts of her outfit and her face, building my values over time and really getting the colors to be more vibrant and saturated where I wanted them to be. I really loved the dark green color of her jacket. It was nearly black and not very saturated, but something about it was really exciting to try and replicate in color. I ended up feeling really good about the way the shading came out to look after just a few layers of paint. There was still quite a bit of shading to be done around the face and other areas of exposed skin, and I had yet to finish adding colors to some of her lower articles of clothing like her belts. Blending a lot of browns and reds make for pleasant warm brown tones for the leather belt at her waist. Right about here, I started touching up the glowy parts of her body, particularly the glow emanating from her sleeves. I wanted to make the effect pop in a way that really showed this was a glow and not just a random splash of green color in her clothing. To add an extra pop to her clothing and accessories, I went in with metallic gold and silver watercolors to bring out the metallic bits of her wardrobe. So things like her gold cuffs, belt buckles, and also her sword and spalders. Since the watercolors I use are semi-opaque, they ended up muddying some of my lines, so I went back in with my brush and ink to touch up and restore the clean look I had with my strong black lines. I also took the opportunity to edit her jawline, which I felt was a little bit too low and too wide for the stylized approach I was taking with the piece. It didn't seem to suit her, so I deviated from the impression of width I picked up from the more recent artwork. In the end, I think it was a good aesthetic choice. And we're just about done here. If you like this video and want to see more, give the video a like and hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment with the character you'd like to see me paint next, and a topic to discuss in the next video. I'd love to hear from you guys, because I'm sure the process talk gets stale after the first few videos. You guys saw what I did, you guys heard it, you already know what I do. So thanks for watching, I'll catch you guys in the next video.